Hey everybody, now welcome to the Live on Four Legs YouTube channel, and if you thought we were done with the tier list, well, we're not. I don't know how we got this far, and you would think that there's nothing left. We did every album, we did the B-Sides album for Lost Dogs, but we're sitting here, there's a lot of really, really good songs that we're yet to do. And there are songs that you can see that are from Merkin Ball. There are songs that you can see that are from the single soundtrack. And those are very top tier songs. We have to get them involved in the conversation because they are a big part of Pearl Jam history. However, there's other songs in this. There's other songs within this that aren't as much of a big deal in Pearl Jam's history. Like, as you see Gwen Stefani down there, she represents she represents Just a Girl, as you know that there was a No Doubt song of the same title. Just a Girl, not one that was played a whole heck of a lot. Can't Deny Me, probably not coming back anytime soon. Evil Little Goat, as you see right there, that's the Cubs goat, I believe. And then we got a couple that we're going to have some really hard conversations about as to just why are we talking about it, because some of them are, well, I should just say one is really that bad. What I did though was I for this, because we're going to do the next episode is going to be Christmas singles, and I tried to keep what was on Christmas singles to be a part of that group, which isn't a lot. There's not a lot of songs for that, but there are 14 for this, and I tried to find the songs that in between that weren't on Lost Dogs, that weren't Christmas singles, that were substantial in some form or another. So you might be looking at this and you might be saying, well, you know, where is like a Creedy Stomp? Where is a 2,000 Mile Blues? Yeah, I didn't think that they were substantial enough for this. And even demos like Cold Confession and 2x4 and Let It Ride, like those are just demos. Those have never been released. Those have never been played live. And that's really been my kind of criteria for this one. So I'm just going to stick with it. And I think that's fine because I don't think a lot of people have the attachment to some of like the demo stuff. It's Avocado outtakes are very, very good. And hopefully at some point there is some sort of Lost Dogs 2 or Stray Cats, whatever you want to call it, and we do get some of these releases. But until then, and look, I'll be the first one to cover it when it happens, but until then, we're going to leave them off. I think we have a nice array of songs here that everybody should know if they don't. And you know what? Why don't we just get started on it? And I think we're going to start out with one of the most important songs on this list, and that's Breath. And of course, you're going all the way back to the singles soundtrack. And Breath, if you remember in the movie, like it comes in a really cool point, like they're kind of panning across. And I haven't seen the movie in a very long time. I don't remember characters or anything like that, but they're panning across somebody's room. And yeah, that's the short end of what the song is. But the song has been around for literally forever. And it became this song after a while that so many people were dying to hear because it just had this positive vibe to it. I think people couldn't understand why they left it off for all those years in the 90s. They barely played it outside of like 1991, 1992. They barely played it. And when they did, it was just kind of like fan club shows. So you don't really hear it too much. And then after 1994, Dave leaves the band and Jack comes in, and Breath doesn't exist in the Jack Irons era. You have to go back to 1998. As you see the picture there, that's a photo of the Breath sign that was being held at Madison Square Garden to convince the band to play Breath in 1998 at that show. And it took a long time to convince. They were doing a lot of song requests and begging and pleading for songs at the time, and Breath was one of them. And the band caved into it. They played it. It sounded like shit at Madison Square Garden, but it kind of became this folklore where fans expected and thought that their voices were being heard. And I think that's so important within this pantheon of the band, and not even to mention that the song is incredible, of course, but that happened, and people still see it as such a huge moment for the band, a huge moment for the band, huge moment for the fans. It's found like new life after that, and it's always one of these songs comes up in the set list, And immediately when you hear those chords, and sometimes he kind of does the slide thing like a boom, and like immediate joy. One time when I went to a show, I was on the rail, and I saw a kid, and I believe I talked to the kid beforehand, and he had a sign, very young kid, he had a sign saying it was his birthday, like 16th birthday, play Breath for my 16th birthday. And I looked over to him when they started the song, because they played it that night, and I looked over to him, and he's jumping up and down, he's like hugging his dad, he's so happy, it was such a good moment. And then afterwards, Ed, during like Porch or Alive or whatever, Ed makes it down to the bottom, and he's, you know, high-fiving, shaking hands, hugging people, and he gets to the kid, and he stops at the kid, and he sees that the sign says it's my birthday, so he's like, oh, happy birthday, and then like does a double take, he's like, oh, and we played that one, so just a cool moment. Like, they got out a Sharpie and he signed the sign, like, just such a cool moment for that, and something I'll never forget. The song is incredible, of course. Easy. Be back into the conversation a little bit later. Easy decision on that. Can't Deny Me. Now, if you remember, 4 years ago to this point, yeah, it's been over 4 years. Can't Deny Me we thought it was a Christmas single, we thought it was just like an upcoming single for the new record, we weren't sure what it was, and what it turned out to be was just kind of the standalone thing, that they had a song, that they recorded it, and they just wanted to put it out, which, okay. It was also coming at a time where the midterm elections were going to be more important, so I think that obviously the song has a political nature to it, but you guys, it's not a good song. It's just, when it first came out, I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing with this, but after a while, the cowbell, the cash register sounds are just nauseating. Like, why'd you have to go and replicate Pink Floyd when you're not even doing it in the same, like, it doesn't make sense, you know? I don't know if that's their mindset during this, but it sure doesn't work, and it's awful, and the whole song is just, you know, it ranges from just kind of awkward noise to just kind of a chanty pop song, and yeah, I remember when they, like, that year they used it for the MLB playoffs, and kind of which was funny because they weren't actually using the lyrics, it was just the "You Can't Deny Me" part, but they weren't like saying, you know, all the stuff that was leading to Trump and Condition Critical and all that. They weren't using all that, which I thought was funny, but yeah, it's not good. And remember, I have the F tier back here. That's a big deal because we got rid of the F tier. I won't put Can't Deny Me in the F tier. It's damn close, but I won't put it there. It is like D-. It's D-. It's very, very not good. Let's put it that way. Evil Little Goat is coming up next, and, you know, like, look, the history on it is this was a demo that they released on the 10 Redux, and nobody knew about it beforehand, or maybe some people had their hands on it, because I think there were some demos being pushed around, but obviously after the Redux comes out, then people kind of know about it. But before Wrigley in 2018, I don't think anybody was ever thinking about Evil Little Goat, ever. And it totally makes sense that they did it that night, because you think about what the history with it, it's sort of a 3-chapter story arc for their 5 shows at Wrigley. The first chapter being, you know, this is a dream for Ed, doing all the way, like, hopefully they're going to win, and they were a bad team in 2013, but, like, Ernie Banks was there, so it was special in that regard. Then you get to 2016, and that's like the lead-in to what would be the Cubs World Championship, the first World Series since 1908, I believe it is. And just like a ridiculously long time that they hadn't sniffed the World Series at all. I think they went to a World Series in 1945, and yeah, everybody knows Steve Bartman and all those things that happened to get it, just happenstance, and the Cubs just kind of failed all those years. And then you go to 2018, Ricketts comes out with the trophy, and they're doing a little celebration for that, and Ed kind of takes a nod to a couple of the new Cubs players, and then plays Evil Little Goat. And obviously, if you know the story about the Cubs and the Billy Goat curse, this kind of can be attributed to that. I'm not sure if the song is really about that, but I would say that there is some sort of tie-in that would make so much sense. It's not much. It's goat, 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 evil little goat. Goat, 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 she was an evil little goat. Man, that's third tier. Look at what we have. It really can't compete with almost all of these. So, yeah, third tier for that. Get It Back. Get It Back is probably the newest original song that we've had. And they released it, I believe, there was something on Bandcamp, and there was a compilation that they added this to, and it just kind of came out of nowhere, like, hey, here's a new Pearl Jam song. Like, okay, listen to it once. Not bad. I don't remember much of it, and because it wasn't on Gigaton, because they never really debuted it live or anything like that, it just sort of kind of floated, and, obviously they weren't going to play it live because they weren't playing anything live, but it kind of had no purpose for a while, and you hear it, you're like, okay, that's okay. But I can be honest with you here, I don't think I've listened to it more than 5 times. I listened to it before doing this episode and doing the research for this, and I listened to it, I'm like, yeah, there's some nice moments in it, but like nothing totally memorable. And I think that what really hurts it is it's just kind of mundane until you really hit a little bit of a rise towards the end, and then it just fades out. And yeah, I wish it didn't do that. And I got really nothing else on it. I think we got so much other stuff to talk about that it's in tier number 3. Who knows? Like, this could be an amazing live song, and it could have like a second wind to it. But right now, no. Okay, we have a lot of history with this one. This is our first Merkin Ball song, and that's I Got Shit. And Eddie loves the story, and I love it too, that, obviously written in the Mirror Ball sessions, and the story goes that Neil was going around the room, and he was like, you got a song, Ed, you don't have a song. And Ed was like, yeah, I got shit. And Neil says, that's the song. Come up with the song. So basically that all turned into, okay, I'm gonna just write the song and see where it goes. And it's just one of their most raw songs in their catalog, one of just the crunchy and just gets really intense. It gets really powerful in moments, and like listen to any live version from like 95 through 2000, and Ed is just ripping through those vocals. Matt and Jack both get on a tear with this. It's one of their best live songs from that era, no doubt about it. And I've always loved it. Obviously, when hearing it for the first time when I was younger, just hearing the chorus, I got memories. I got shit. Like, I always just loved screaming that aloud. And how can you go wrong? This is the kind of Pearl Jam song that should really hit every fan the right way, because you have a little bit of the intensity, a little bit of sort of the soaring aspect in it, a little bit of the build up and kind of bring you back down with the plane landing a little bit, and also just the band being in sync on the end and just jamming and getting that final ending, the big strum at the end there. Like, that's an exciting moment. Look, I don't know what's going to happen to all the single songs and all of the Merkin Ball songs here, but right now it's looking pretty good for them because everything is in the 1 tier, which means there's probably a pretty good chance that one of those songs makes S tier. So just going to throw that out there. All right, Just a Girl. Look, this is interesting because Just a Girl didn't really make it outside of their first show. Their first show, they played at the Off-Ramp, they played it, and they played it one other time, I believe, at the Florentine Gardens, and that was it. It's not surprising that the band didn't want to go forward with it. I've always thought it was kind of a diet Alone, and that's not a slight on Alone at all. It just had that kind of same feel to it, kind of same energy, kind of same sound, and it just didn't hit in the same way. It's like, if you want to say that like Pearl Jam has a grungy song, like this could be considered what people might think of when they think of grunge, and it might have been better for 80s grunge, and it might have worked then, but in the 90s where things were changing and Pearl Jam was really trying to transition, really it's Jeff and Stone that were trying to transition into what Pearl Jam would become. Just a Girl really felt out of place, and they recognized it and they were able to get rid of it pretty quickly. And then obviously later on the Redux, I feel bad. The third tier is kind of pretty stealthy right now, and I think that Gwen Stefani is joining the rest of the crew there, because I don't think it belongs in 2. It's not 1, but again, I can't put it in the F tier, because the F tier, something special's coming up, so hang with me on that. Leatherman. Now, Leatherman is very interesting because it kind of has a history. It was a B-side off of, I believe, Given a Fly, and I never thought much of the song for a while. I thought it was just kind of like this middling song that was like, okay, like it's got a cool groove to it, but then where does it go? Does it take you anywhere? Not quite. Maybe a little bit. I've heard good live versions before that kind of redeem the song for me, and I don't hate it by any stretch, but like I kind of look at some stuff at a critical eye sometimes, and when I look at Leatherman, I'm like, all right, what more do we have? And the reason why it might be better than what we have in 3, I think goes to what the Man trilogy is. And because it's part of that, because it always fits in with Better Man and always fits in with Nothing Man, it has much more of a place than anything in the third tier right here. It's not ever going to be one of their more popular songs, but I think being part of that trilogy does give it a little bit of weight, and especially like Ed sometimes, obviously they still play it, Ed sometimes loves to tell the story of who the Leatherman is, and I think that's important for this too. And it's funny because there was always somebody that walked around our neighborhood that we called Leatherman because he would just wear leather from head to toe, so it kind of has a personal connection with that. But I think this is solid too, and I think that if it wasn't part of the Man trilogy, I might think of it differently, but it has weight because of that, for sure. Long Road. This is the second Merkin Ball song, obviously, and it's one of their best. You want emotional moments at Pearl Jam shows. You want when they come back to face tragedy the first time that they're coming back from the Roskilde tragedy. And the way that they can drive through it, the way that the fans are able to pull through it, is through the emotion in the song. And how many times has this song been sort of a therapeutical moment for band fans, anybody in the world that's paying attention? The other version that really makes sense with this too, the one that was played on the 9/11 tribute show that happened like nearly a week after the incident happened. And that was pretty powerful too, with Neil Young playing an organ on it. And obviously you have to go back to where the story's origins are too. He had a teacher in high school named Clayton E. Leggett, and Clayton passed away when they were recording the Mirrorball sessions, and he got a phone call and found out, and he kind of took some time to himself, and he was just like, all right, I need to just take a moment, I need to process this. And he grabs a guitar, just kind of goes into a secluded spot and starts playing. He just starts strumming out these chords, and he was thinking to himself, it's kind of like almost like a ringing of the bell, like a tribute and honor to somebody. And the rest of the band and Neil all take notice of this, and without saying a thing, they all grab their instruments and they put something to it, and that's how Long Road was developed. And I just think that's a beautiful story for a song that has had such an attachment to everybody over the years. It has one of the best rises and builds in the whole Pearl Jam catalog. It can get really, really emotional, And it can get intense sometimes too. Sometimes they can get really fast with it if they wanted to, and Ed will crack his vocals a little bit. And look, again, this is going to be released way after the first part of this tour happens in May, but there's potential that they kick off the tour with this song. And if they do, it makes a lot of sense because it's San Diego, and the song's attributed to San Diego. I mean, come on, guys. Like, let's not fuck around with this. Easy in, absolutely. Now we're on to Man of the Hour, which was a song that was written for Big Fish, and Big Fish is a really great movie, and I have to say that because I had a professor in college that worked on the movie, and literally anytime he was teaching us anything about, film production, he would go back to this movie and be like, oh yeah, the big giant, we made him bigger because we put him on an apple box. I'm like, okay. However, what's great about this song, and I believe, if I remember correctly, the soundtrack to this was very, very good. And specifically, Tim Burton wanted them to write something for this movie. So after watching the movie, Ed thought to himself, he was like, okay, this is a really beautiful movie. It's very poignant. And started writing on the spot, and something kind of beautiful happened with it, and he was able to really kind of find something deep and emotional with it. And the first time it was ever played, I think it's honestly my favorite version. It's Benaroya Hall. And the first time it's played, he tells the crowd, we're going to try something new. We wrote it for a movie. And the best part about it is, obviously, that's a 2,500 seat concert hall. There are not a lot of people. You're not getting a rousing 17,000, 20,000 Pearl Jam fans in there. So everybody, when they hear a new song is being played, they're on the edge of their seat and they're like just captivated by this. And when they get through and they go from the first chorus back into getting into the verse, you could hear a pin drop during that whole time from the beginning. And then when they get back into the verse, just after the chorus ends, a huge round of applause. Like, immediately the crowd dug it and they were into it. And it's got to be such a great feeling for the band on stage to just know that the fans had their back that quickly on it. And it's a great song. It's still on my list to hear live. I still need it, and I would love to get it at one of the shows that I'm going to in the not-so-distant future. And there's just really, really tough competition here. Really tough competition. And I think there might be an argument to put it in the first tier. However, I don't know if it's going to win that argument, because I think that what I have might be more first tier appropriate. So it's a very high second tier, but it is second tier. So that's look, if this was going against Avocado songs, if it was going against Backspacer songs, it's in the first tier, maybe even fighting for S tier spot. I love the song. It's very, very good. It's one of the best on this list here, but there are 5 that I consider to be better. And one of them may be this. Oh, no, I'm just kidding, you guys. Did you fall for it? We're going to get to that one in a second. And yeah, we're not going to have very nice things to say about it. Of the Earth. I'm going to have a lot of nice things to say about Of the Earth. Now, it's so interesting because going back to 2006, this was something that Ed wrote and felt like he couldn't get right in the studio. We do not have a studio recording of this at all. We don't have anything where they attempted it, and from what I remember, Mike and Stone did Red at AMA a couple years ago during the pandemic, and I specifically asked about this. I specifically asked, were there songs that were left off? Did you consider Of the Earth for Gigaton? And Mike just says, Ed never liked it. Ed never liked how it came out on the recording, and he couldn't do it. So it just became one of these things where it's such a powerful song, it has those perfect Pearl Jam kind of builds to it and rises, and I guess they just considered it a better live track. And the only times it's ever been released on anything were just the official bootlegs, and that's it. It's been played, I believe, like 13 times, so you had to be really, really lucky to hear it. I have not been that lucky, and trust me, I want to be. It just has like all these intense moments, and you have to think about like everything that's come out within this time frame of 2006 through, I'll say 2013, through Lightning Bolt. None of them really sound like this. None of them kind of get these like big, massive builds, get this like big, intense, like, I don't want to say emotional, but just like powerful moment in the builds, and where Ed is just cracking his voice. And not just that. What's amazing to me is that this is fully an Ed written song, music and lyrics written by Ed, and it doesn't feel like this is an Ed song, because this is way more structured than how a lot of other Ed songs are. Usually Ed songs are very riffy, usually they have kind of like the run on notes, like an MFC or something like that, but Of the Earth just kind of feels like more of a jam band song. Like it might be like considered their most jammy kind of song, and when I say that, I think about the version that they did with Jack White on the Third Man Records release, and it's just awesome. This song is so good, no matter how you slice it, and there's a lot of moments in there where you're just on your seat captivated, and I think the one that I like the best is where they really kind of pick up some steam, they kind of get into it, and then they fall right back into that progressive verse, the original beginning chord, and that's just a moment where you're just, wow, blown away by the whole entire thing. If this doesn't exist, then Man of the Hour is in the first tier, but look at that. Tier number 1 is pretty full right now. I guess you can kind of tell with what we have left what's going to happen, but Of the Earth is absolutely a first tier right there. The moment you've all been waiting for. Olé. It's the worst song in their catalog. It's worse than Johnny Guitar. It's worse than Can't Deny Me. It's worse than everything. The reason why it's worse is no more than it's just poorly written, it's poorly adapted, and it just feels like, and I like when Pearl Jam goes and does like garage rock kind of stuff, but this is just like 15-year-olds just trying to basically put pen to paper on guitar and kind of do something a little bit haphazard and just scream things at the top of their lungs. And there's just no point to this. There's absolutely no point to the song. I really feel like they thought that they needed something that was going to be a South American / Mexico kind of song, and that's where most of the live versions have been played. And I don't, look, if you come from that region, you can tell me differently, but I don't think it's really even stuck down there. I really don't. It's overall bad. The lyrics. What you say when your life ends. You gotta say, Olé. Come the fuck on. This is the only song that I'll ever do this to, unless something in the future comes out that's that bad. F. Failure on all parts. They're better than this. However, look, that they only have one that I feel deserves to be an F out of their whole entire catalog. We're probably at the end of this run through, I would say like 170, 180 some on songs. Let's say it's 180. Out of 180 songs, Olé being the only one that's an F tier song, that's pretty freaking good. Pretty freaking good for Pearl Jam, and I'm not trying to be biased or anything like that, but goddamn, Olé is freaking bad. Okay, moving on. Out of My Mind, that's one where back in 1994, it was kind of considered a little bit of an improv, and it kind of picked up a little steam, and they played it one more time in 1994, and it sort of became a thing because they put it on, I believe it was the Not For You single, I believe. And it's still the Atlanta 94, not the Atlanta 94, the one that everybody knows from April 3rd, but it's the night before from April 2nd that this happens on. And, it's something that people attached to, and it's something that, like, everybody got really excited for when they played it at the Spectrum, and then again when they played it at Fenway Park. I was there that night, and I thought that, okay, this would be one that I would absolutely never hear in my whole entire life, and boy, was I wrong. I'm usually wrong about a lot of stuff that happens with Pearl Jam when I can predict things. And yeah, it's cool. Look, I give them a lot of credit for kind of picking up on doing something that was improv like that and saying, like, we had something with this, let's continue on. The fans really attach themselves to it. It's fine. It's good. I don't think it's of the first tier, but I give it a lot of credit. I give the band a ton of credit. And look, if we wanted to go through their improvs, we could be here for days and days and days to break down their improvs. We're just not doing that. This improv was actually released. It was actually played live in some capacity. It has, they'll go through and they've done improvs that have been, I'll even mention here, the hard to imagine type improvs, where they were just changing the song up as they were just figuring it out on the fly. But Out of My Mind has always been Out of My Mind, essentially. So, yeah, second tier's perfectly fine. This is interesting. So State of Love and Trust and Untitled is left, and I'll get to State first. And what I'll say about State of Love and Trust is it's fucking great. I think that so many people attach to it because it's just so intense and fast. It has some really dark kind of lyrics to it, obviously, and the subject matter can be dark, but in early 1992, like, that kind of stuff, like, Ed is still writing about his life, his early life, and you can kind of feel that something like this is a part of what he was thinking, prior to joining Pearl Jam. And, like, that's just another piece of the Eddie Vedder story, I suppose. It's not something that he's really talked about, I don't think, but look, you get into moments like that crunchy Jeff bass riff, oh, it's so good. That leads into the mic solo. That's kind of this, like, triumphant moment. It's so exciting when you get to that. Like, you kind of know the signals when it happens and you're excited for it. There's also versions of this that Ed, they don't happen very often, but Ed decides on the last listen that he's going to hold the note out for, I'm going to say, like, a good 15 to 20 seconds. He just keeps it and, like, completely shatters past where he's supposed to go. And it's incredible. It's awesome. Obviously, it being on the single soundtrack helps it a lot. And, for people that have longed for the 10 era and really love the 10 era, this is part of what makes the 10 era special. Absolutely. And all four of the songs from those releases, the single soundtrack and Merkin Ball, have all made it to the first tier. And, I think that was pretty standard that would happen. I think that those were locks out of all these, especially out of everything that's in the number 3 hole. But yeah, it had to happen. They're just too good. We're going to finish off with Untitled, and when you think of Untitled could be a couple things, but this Untitled is actually the Untitled intro that happens before MFC, and I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the coolest moments that happens. It can get kind of like sing-songy, get kind of emotional, and it really ties into the content of MFC pretty well, where, like, it's kind of about, like, getting away from a situation, and you can kind of tie the two together, where Untitled is where somebody's getting away, but then somebody has to reach somebody else that's dealing with an issue. So it's still got the car driving song mentality to it. And right here, what I will say about this, and the song, of course, being fantastic, but it's by itself, and although by itself great, I'll listen to it every day, it needs MFC. And honestly, MFC needs it too. So that kind of holds it back from being a first tier, just on its own. Because the two songs go hand in hand, and from all these, it's not touching them. As great as it is, to get like the top of the second tier, like Untitled and Man of the Hour could have a dogfight for hours, and I still wouldn't know who would win. But yeah, that's a testament to how good it was. If it was on the Christmas singles one that we're doing next week, then yeah, it might end up in the first tier for sure. Okay. All right. Lots of decisions here. I have not made one. Breath. I'm gonna put the soundtrack songs together. I'm gonna put Breath and State of Love and Trust here. I'm gonna go I Got Shit and Long Road over here, and Of the Earth is in the middle. And right off the bat, I think that Of the Earth is probably the odd man out of this, just because of the history with everything else. Not to say that Of the Earth isn't as good as any of it, but I think that there's a lot of power and a lot of weight behind all these, that there's going to be a dogfight discussion here. What do you want out of an S tier song? You want a song that kind of defines who Pearl Jam is. You want a song that it defines a lot of people's fandom. All four of these do that. You want a song that's unique to them and it just sounds like them. You want one that sounds great live, that gets a great reaction live. All of these songs have that. So, what I have to do to begin this is I have to eliminate one and one. I have to eliminate one from singles, and I have to eliminate one from Merkin. That's also very tough. Where I go with it, I'm going to talk it out. The uniqueness of Breath and the uniqueness of the story of Breath and the way that it's kind of had this life after the 90s, and it still does. It's still one of these songs where, like I mentioned before, when it comes up nowadays, it feels like you're getting a pretty special gem out of the Pearl Jam catalog. When State of Love and Trust comes up, same way. I don't think they've ever stopped playing State of Love and Trust. This one is up in like the 300, 400 range of times played. Breath, under 100 times. So there's kind of when it's away and you miss it, you grow to love it more and you just want it more. And I think that's what you get with Breath over State of Love and Trust. State of Love and Trust is almost inevitable. I've probably got it at 10 of the shows I've been to, maybe more. Breath, maybe 3 or 4. Not as much. I think because of that, Breath is so much more important. Not to say that State of Love and Trust isn't, but I think that Breath has lyrics that are powerful. Both of them do, but I think that Breath has the kind of stuff that you get tattooed on your arm. If I knew where it was, I would take you there. There's much more than this. Like, it's classic, and they never should have dropped it. But because they did, everybody seems to clamor for it, and they should. So State of Love and Trust is going to stay in the first tier. Breath is going to kind of move on in this tournament of singles versus Merkin Ball songs right now. And now we kind of got to figure out sort of the same thing with Long Road and I Got Shit. Long Road is so important, like as I mentioned, used for all the emotional moments, used as kind of the therapeutic moment to help you out with tragedy, to help you out with, even when it's like not something like Roskilde, even when it's something that they just have something big on their mind. Like it could be the passing of somebody, it could be that they haven't shown up at a place in a very long time. It could just be like the Toronto show in 2011 that Neil was there, and they have a connection to Neil obviously with the song. So it could just be that. I think it has all of those things tapped into it. I Got Shit, it's a different connection because it still feels pretty rare when you get it nowadays, and they still can go off on it. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more poppy than it was in its heyday, and I feel like even in that aspect, that's what makes it tough. I might be convincing myself out of I Got Shit here, because when Long Road is played, Long Road still has that vibe of building and capturing magic and capturing a moment. And while I don't want to say I Got Shit is diminished, it took a different turn. And if they had always played it like they did, then I would maybe consider it in a different light. Might be looking at it, and this is like very, very like, apples to apples here. I just think that in the pantheon of Pearl Jam, Long Road has had so much more importance with the fans, with the band. It really kills me to put I Got Shit back. But, yeah, I think this is the right decision. A tough decision, but the right one. I feel like if I linger on this, then it's just going to hurt even more. So I kind of have to like close my eyes and go 1, 2, 3, pick. And I think what I want to do is I think about all the songs that are involved already that are S tier songs. And I think about the type, and really there is a type. And we don't have a lot that sound like Long Road. We don't. Mostly the songs are more like up-tempo and, more kind of have solos and kind of have big moments. And Long Road's obviously more solemn than that. And Breath would really fit the category of everything we have left, which might make it tougher for Breath to get a better rating when we do that. But would it help Long Road? It's a head versus heart situation here, and I think head is saying Long Road. I think heart is saying Breath. I am going with my head. Long Road's the one. And I just go back to look, Breath has a connection. Long Road has a connection. Breath's connection, they connect differently, but when something has the emotional power, it can bring you to a moment that can set the tone for a night. Like, that's such an important part, too, that the openers from shows just set the tone. And Breath is more adding to the party, which is totally fine. But there are not a lot of tone setters here that you can say, like, this is setting the moment for the night. Long Road does, and I think that makes it S tier. So, really, really tough decision. I'll go over everything that happened quickly, and then we'll prep for the next one. F tier. The only F in their catalog is Olay. Screw that song, it's awful. Third tier, Can't Deny Me, Evil Little Goat, Get It Back, and Gwen Stefani, aka Just a Girl. Leatherman in the second tier, as well as Man of the Hour, Out of My Mind, and Untitled. And, of course, Untitled without MFC. And then first tier, really tough decisions here between the single songs and the Merkin Ball songs. We have Breath, we have State of Love and Trust, we have Of the Earth, and we have I Got Shit. And sitting alone at the top, it was a long road to get there, but Long Road is the winner, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. And next week is going to be Christmas singles. All right. And what we're doing with that, obviously, there's a lot of Christmas single songs, and it's all going to be original, so it's not going to be like Sonic Reducer or anything like that. It's all going to be original songs, and of course it's not going to be Lost Dogs, because some of the Lost Dogs, like Let Me Sleep, they got released on Lost Dogs. It was part of that episode. If you haven't watched that, then go back into the channel's archive and you'll be able to find that. But it's very short. It's very short, but I think we could do something with it. Do you like what just happened here? I hope you did. And if you do, then look, we have a podcast called Live on Four Legs Podcast that we do every episode. We cover a show from Pearl Jam's history. It could be something from the early 90s. We talked a lot about the early 90s today. It could be something from the 2000s. any era is up for grabs, but we love to talk about the history, we love to tell the stories, and we love to preserve the memories for all you that we know go to these shows and cherish these moments at these shows. So if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel or go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify to subscribe. And if you want to help out the show, you can donate to our Patreon, and all of that is going into tour expenses for the next little while that, we're going to be going out, and we're going to go to a lot of places. So, look, with your help, we can do stuff like have money for gas money. We can do stuff like have money for food and things like that. So that's essentially what we need some help with, and hopefully you guys can come through if you want to help us out a little bit. And we have extra content over there. If you're interested in more content, then definitely head over there, because that stuff is grade A stuff just as much as the regular stuff is on the normal platforms. But patreon.com/liveonfourlegs if you want to get that, or you can actually go to our website liveonfourlegs.com, and you'll be able to click a button at the top that says become a patron, and just follow the steps and do that. It's fairly easy. We appreciate everybody that has supported us in the past, in the present, and, even if you haven't donated anything to us, just watching our videos is enough for us to appreciate your support. So, thanks, everybody. This was a really tough list. Next week might be tough in other ways, but we'll figure it out. We'll get through it. Until then, this was number 15. 16 is coming up, and then, after that, we got a lot of decisions to make. So hang tight. We'll see you later.